go toe-to-toe to the bell. Been floored by the headshot. Refusing to lose. Refusing to give up. Astonishing right hook to the head.
Respect isn't given, it's earned. In blood.
You might be wondering why I'm full of energy tonight. It's because of this stuff, Zapi T1. Been on it a month. Let me tell you something. It's the dog's bollocks.
You know, I was wondering why is Dominic Ingle so chirpy tonight. I'll tell you, let's move your guitar before we start talking, because you don't want to be sat in that position all evening.
Well, you don't know, because I've got other tunes. I've got a song about Lawrence Okoli, but I'll leave that till another day. I'll put it over here, yeah?
What, you created a song for Lawrence Okoli?
Yeah, but we'll leave that one for now. We've done enough guitar playing for today, haven't we?
Yeah. Let me just sort your mic out. Another session of the Brutally Honest podcast. Thank you as always for popping out, Dom. It's been a nice weekend. And yeah, nice little intro that. And I think it's worth telling people, I came to you like 5-6 weeks ago saying we've got an opportunity to work with a brand called Zapi. You will have seen Carl Froch working with them as well. They do obviously a product which is great for men that are struggling with their testosterone levels, which a lot of men experience when they get to like close to 30s. And the first thing he said to me was, I'm not promoting anything until I know how good it is. So you've been on it for the last 4 or 5 weeks. The reason, obviously, you did what you did today is because I understand it's you've seen some changes.
Well, yeah, you do get, look, I take a lot of vitamins and supplements, creatine, lots of stuff. But I'm nearly 60. Another 2 years I'll be 60. And modern day living, like men's, what they're saying there is men's testosterone's dropping in mid-30s to 40s. Everybody in there is getting blood tests, they're seeing low testosterone, and a lot of people don't want to go down the route of TRT, so they're trying to take supplements, what's going to boost it. Now, there's a lot of duff stuff out there what don't work. So, and I've tried a lot of it, and I don't particularly rate a lot what I've tried, and I don't know whether it's because I'm getting older, but like I said, I've been taking this for a month. But you know what? You see, remember when we went down to London and I did that interview with Carl Froch?
Yeah.
And we had the arm wrestle at end.
You did, yes.
Right, and it finished and you didn't see who won. But I'm a good 2 stone heavier. Maybe, in fact, no, I tell you what, I'm not 2 stone heavy because we had a chat. He's about the same weight as me, but I've been lifting weights all my life. He's a boxer. We had an arm wrestle and he don't show it on the video, but I struggled. I'm not going to say how it went, but I struggled with Carl Froch. And then he started pumping out this Zapi T1 stuff, so that's what he's been taking, and he'd been taking that even when I've been down there. He's been weight training, he's doing his boxing, and he's challenging everybody wanting to fight. So it's obviously his testosterone levels are raised, aren't they? So obviously he must be doing the trick. But I'm going to get a blood test and see where mine's at, and we'll see if it's registering on a blood test as well.
Yeah, we saw Carl recently talk about morning glory as well with Eddie Hearn because of this product. But yeah, it's a great product, and as you can see, they are officially our partners of the Brutally Honest.
Well, I don't want to brag, but I've been camping for the last 30 years. And always wake up in a tent.
Okay, well, they're officially our partners of the Brutally Honest podcast, as well as the Uncomfortable Truth podcast with Johnny Nelson. So there's a reason behind that, because we like to work with proper brands, and genuinely, if you want to get yourself a packet of Zapi T1 or the other stuff they sell on the website, the link is pinned in the comments. get on it, because a lot of their stuff, when it comes on, it sells out fairly quickly. So get on it, Zapi T1. We're going to jump on to boxing, Dom. I think the first thing we should talk about is probably Lawrence Okoli before, and I'm pretty sure most people are probably tuned in to see your reaction and thoughts on the fallout, the second fallout between Johnny Nelson and Prince Naseem Hamed. It's a tricky subject because obviously we spoke about it last time, and it's kind of erupted again. We saw obviously Naseem Hamed go on Talksport. He's doing a segment with Simon Jordan, and it looked like, they had that video saved of Johnny from, and that was from a few months ago when they had that back and forth about the movie, etc. And obviously Johnny defended your dad. And then obviously there's not, like, Naz hasn't been asked about that response since. And obviously you could tell by his reaction, he was surprised by it. He wasn't expecting that. And then obviously he said what he said. So I think the first thing I want to ask you is about what you said. His comments were basically initially obviously shocked at seeing that video. And then he said that Johnny was a snake and frightened of his own shadow, which is something you told me before. And then also suggested that, he begged Frank Warren to get Johnny on cards, etc.
Well, that's easy to clarify that kind of stuff.
Clarify all 3 points for me.
Well, so the first point is?
Johnny's a snake.
Right, well, I watched that interview and what example did Naz give of being a snake? There was no, he just said he was a snake, but he didn't give any examples. And
Do you think, I was thinking outside that, but maybe, do you think he means that he helped Johnny in his career with regards to getting fights and all that kind of stuff, and he feels that Johnny's maybe turned on him now?
Well, let's just look at it. Johnny was 18 years old when he turned professional. So Naz will have been about 8 or 9, right? So that's wind on 10 years till Naz gets to 18. So in 10 years' time, Johnny's 28. By that time, Johnny had won the British, European, box for a world title. I think he did that twice in that 10-year period. So he failed it. He got British title, European.
That was the Barry Hearn, yeah?
He did it with Barry Hearn and he did it and then with Frank Warren. So he did it. So he went British, European, world title. He won the British, won the European, got beat for the world title. Back down to the British title, won it. Won the European, got his crack again, another world title. Lost. Right, okay, so he's gone through that process twice in that 10-year period. Naz is not even relevant at that point. He's a kid coming through, boxing amateur. So Johnny's already a veteran of like 28 years old, roughly, when Naz is turning pro. So then Naz becomes world champion so many years later. So Johnny, in fact, Johnny will have been probably about, this will probably be about 26, because Johnny won the world title when he was 31. So Johnny's next stage, what set him on the way? Yeah, probably about 20 actually. The next stage, the next phase, is Ryan Rhodes boxed in Sheffield against Paul Silky Jones for the British title, and Johnny wasn't really getting any work. He was just he'd been the WBF world champion. He'd been floating around, and Dennis Andres was around in the cruiserweights, and it was a Sheffield bill. We got Ryan Rhodes on it. We got Johnny Nelson. There's a whole lot of Sheffield kids. And we got Johnny Nelson in with Dennis Andres for the British title. Don't forget, my dad trains Naz, manages Naz, trains everybody. We've got all the Sheffield fighters. When you have a Sheffield show in Sheffield, it's all the Sheffield fighters. And Ryan Rhodes is top of the bill against Paul Silky Jones. Naz is in the audience. Now, from what I remember of that fight, I don't think Naz begged Frank to get him that fight. He might have. What I do remember is they had a bet with each other, and Frank, as far as I can remember, bet with Naz that Andres would beat Johnny, and Naz said to Frank, "No, Johnny will beat Dennis Andres." I think so. That's what I remember from that fight. And Johnny beat Dennis Andres, and then he went on and he won the European again, and then he went on to box Cole for the world title, Cole Thompson for the world title, and he won the world title, and he defended it 13 times, and he went down in the Guinness Book of Records for holding the title the longest and being most undefeated. The only person who matched that was Marco Huck.
Did he match it or did he fall short?
I think he matched it, but then he got knocked out in his next fight, whereas Johnny ended up retiring. He matched it, I think. So, as far as Naz saying that, you know, he helped Johnny, all the work had already been done on Johnny. Years and years and years of work from my dad being in this gym. You know, when Naz came along, it was kind of the back end of, it wasn't the back end of Johnny's career, but Johnny was, you know, was a veteran of the game by then. If you consider this, that Naz left in 98, Johnny became world champion around about 99 and was champion till 2005. He was 6 years as world champion and he was unbeaten. If you look at his record, I think he was unbeaten in 10 years, I think, right? So the last 10 years of his career, I think Johnny was unbeaten and he was world champion for 6. He retired in 2005 and I think Naz retired in 2003. So Johnny started before Naz and he finished after Naz, right? Yeah, Naz was a fan, you know, made the money, got the glitz and the glamour, yeah. But Naz can't claim in any way, shape or form any credit for Johnny's success. He can't.
I think Ryan Rhodes said to me that, you know, we all kind of benefited of the extra eyes, public PR, media coming to the gym.
Well, but look, you know, Ryan's not going to upset anybody. Ryan's going to sit on the fence. He was a friend of Naz, they were very close, the old were. He's going to sit on the fence. Ryan's never been one of them. He's not going to do a Johnny. He's going to sit on the fence. That's what he's going to do, right? So that's good what Ryan says. That's great. Everybody did benefit off it, just like they benefited off it when Errol Graham was in the gym and they were kids. When Ryan was a kid, when Naz was a kid, they benefited off Errol Graham because they were around him and he'd be having photos with them and he'd be sparring with them. To be honest, the person who really Naz should be thanking is Errol Graham. Do you understand? Errol Graham, yeah, the time Errol Graham spent training with Naz, sparring with him, you know, that's who everybody aspired to be at the time. Ryan Rhodes, Naseem Hamed, they all wanted to be the Errol Graham, the better version of Errol Graham. And Errol Graham was a very good boxer. And I'm not going to put my neck on the chopping block here. I'm going to tell you, Errol Graham was a better boxer than Naseem Hamed. He was probably one of the best or the best boxer to come out of this gym in a time when world titles and high-level fighters were very, very good. And it was difficult to be a world champion. So people say, yeah, but he got beat, he never became world champion. By the time, look, people won't realise this. And this is not sticking the knife into Naz, because it's almost 30 years since he left this gym. Naz is free to say what he wants to say about that situation with this gym and my dad. It don't matter to me. It's all water under the bridge. I can understand why Johnny gets upset, because Johnny had a different relationship with he was a father figure. My dad was a father figure to Johnny, but he was my father anyway. But Johnny, it was kind of his mentor as well. So I know everything that my dad did for Naz. I don't need to prove that to anybody. But what people don't realise is this. Steve Robinson was the featherweight WBO world champion. Naseem Hamed was a super bantamweight. He didn't box at featherweight. Right? He never had a fight at featherweight. The first fight he had at featherweight was the world title against Steve Robinson. Now, in the WBO and in most organisations, if you're the number one or you're the world champion, right? If you're the world champion in a weight division, right, below or above, you can go into another division and get them and be mandatory, yeah? And what Frank Warren did, now was only something like an international champion or an intercontinental champion, like a WBO intercontinental champion. He wasn't a world champion. Frank Warren managed to manoeuvre him, right, straight into position in the featherweights to fight Robinson and got it passed by the WBO, yeah? Naz didn't fight any eliminators. He wasn't, I don't even think he was rated number one in the super bantamweights. He wasn't even a world champion, so he didn't deserve the elevation, but Frank worked it with the WBO. And he went in and he beat Robinson. That's when he got his chance, yeah? So that was down to Frank Warren. And Naz pulled it off and he won and everything went great for him from then on. And everybody played the part. Everybody in that gym had sections of their careers when they were the top man. And Johnny was sat in the background. He had peaks and troughs, peaks and troughs, peaks and troughs. Naz's career went He went in a straight line of success, all the way up, and then he got to Barrera, and he just fell off the cliff. His trajectory was up. Johnny was up and down all the way through. But, like I say, as far as being a snake concerned, Johnny started his career in here at 14 years old, and he finished his career in here at 38 years old. So, I can't see how Johnny's a snake, because he looked after Naz. They're all part of the entourage. They went around the world with him, Kevin Adamson, Clifton Mitchell, Ryan Rhodes, Tommy Bradley, Nigel Bradley, Kevin Adamson, sometimes Paul Stinger Mason. He had a lot of people around him, Naz, helping him and keeping him on track, like his team. They protected him from all the stuff going on, and him and his boys. So they all played the part in that respect. Understand? They were his entourage, these big guys walking around, and he was kind of invincible. And it kind of softened everything what was around. All the Naz getting intimidated, he didn't, because he was like, here I am with my boys. So they were a big benefit to Naz, all these people around him, all protecting him and bringing him along and helping him, looking after him. And they all had a kind of special relationship, and they all probably got stories about each other. Don't forget, Naz was like a rock star back in them days. And there's stuff that probably Johnny knows that'll never see the light of day about Naz. Nobody'd even repeat it. And there's probably stuff what Naz knows. It's like anything else. It all stays under wraps. Johnny's never going to come out and say, well, this, that, and other. You know, Naz might be referring to Johnny being a snake. Well, he did something that nobody knows about, but I don't see it, because I've never seen that in Johnny. Like Ryan Rhodes, if you said about Ryan Rhodes, oh, you're a snake. Well, he weren't a snake. There weren't many snakes in this gym. The ones who were snakes in this gym got kicked out. So you can't stay in this gym for 10, 20 years being a snake, because my dad wouldn't have it. He used to kick them out straight away. As soon as he saw anybody being snaky or sneaky or whispering people, he just booted them out.
In that time, though, you know, that particular state.
Wait a minute, that's the one point, isn't it? So that's the snake. Go on, yes, sorry.
Well, I was just going to clarify. So, in that whole period, is there ever been a time where he may have helped Johnny get a fight, for example, through Frank Warren? That's what. That's the point he made.
Well, if betting with Frank Warren, saying make that fight because Johnny will beat him, and Frank says no, he won't, and I bet he will, and Frank, I'll tell you what, I'll put that fight on because I'm going to show Naz I know more about boxing than him, and the competition there caused the fight, but it was a no-brainer anyway, because I think Andres was managed and promoted by Frank, and Johnny wasn't, but he was still with the Ingle gym, so it was an easier fight to make because he had a good relationship with my dad, Frank. So whether that was it, you know, forced the fight, but it paid off, and Johnny ended up stopping Dennis Andres, I think, or he beat him anyway, and that moved Johnny on. And Johnny became the world champion, and for many years. So it benefited Frank because he had the cruiserweight champion, and there were a time when, I remember one year, Johnny must have defended 3 or 4 times because Ricky and Joe Kazagi kept getting injured, and he couldn't have, so Frank didn't have anybody to put in world title fights, and it was Johnny's most prolific year. So whether it did or it didn't, but by him saying he got the fight, he got Johnny on his way. Well, so did Errol Graham with Naz, or even Johnny with Naz in the early days, because I think when Naz first boxed, he was with Barry Earn, and Johnny had boxed for Barry Earn before that. So just the reputation of the gym got people fights. You understand? Nobody was interested. When Naz turned 18. There was no massive promoters knocking on his door saying, we want this kid. He won a lot of stuff juniors, but he hadn't won senior stuff. My dad had to force him on people. He didn't even box in Sheffield in his first fights. He boxed in Mansfield because we got the venue for free. You've seen it in the film. Why is he boxing in Mansfield? Because there wasn't any money to put him on in Sheffield. Nobody was backing him in Sheffield. Nobody was investing in him in Sheffield. My dad got some counsellor in Mansfield to give him the venue for free. And that's how they did it. And that's how they built Naz up. So everybody's had a push from somebody. Johnny's had a push from several people through his career, whether it was Barry Earn, Mickey Duff, Frank Warren. Everybody has a push from somebody. It wasn't just down. Naz was a fraction that much maybe, but Johnny probably benefited Naz through his career far more than Naz ever benefited Johnny because of what they did together.
This bit about being frightened of his own shadow, I think you've told me about this before, but Johnny explained it the other day. He goes, it was basically nerves which he saw as fear.
Yeah. But that's just a what can I say?
Isn't there a story where I think you told me, you even told your dad that why you're training him for? I think you might have
No,
told
do you know what? It was, well, look, when Johnny boxed as amateur, like, we were boxing and Johnny used to come in. I used to go in the corner with him. We used to think, why does he want to fight? He's like, he's not, he's not an aggressive kid. He's a big kid. He looks like he can fight. Yet, he's like, he hasn't really got the tools. That's what it were. He hadn't got, he wanted to do it and he thought that's like a good idea. But the reality, when you get him punched in the face, he came into boxing relatively late at 14 because we've been doing it from 8 and 9 and you have your first amateur fight at 11. So when Johnny come into the gym, we'd already been boxing, had fights, and so he's trying to get into it. And, he wasn't the best. You could see he wanted to do it, and even to get in the ring takes a lot of bottle. But once he got in there, he didn't really know what to do. And it took time. He wasn't in that positive environment at home. So when we use the phrase, he was scared of his own shadow, basically, he just wasn't an aggressive kid. He'd rather turn the other cheek, not have any confrontation. We used to work on the doors together. We used to work in town when the snooker was on, at a hotel called the Grosvenor House Hotel. That's where all the snooker players used to stay. Me and Johnny were the hotel security. And in all that time, for years, we must have done it for 5 or 6 years over these when they were World Championships. And Johnny never ever got into any bother, never had to talk, never had to deal with anybody, just stood there and people would keep away from him. Never got into fights, never street fights, no street fights. So, but he got into boxing, then he would box. And there were times when he did falter in the ring and he fell to pieces and at the final point. But when he boxed Cole Thompson, who was probably, of all the 3 people he boxed for the world title, one was James Waring for the IBF, the first one was Carlos de Leon. I think Johnny was about 22, 23, and Carlos de Leon was way past it, but in his time he was good. Carlos de Leon, James Waring. At the end of his career, or coming towards the end of his career, Johnny boxed Cole Thompson, who was on fire at the time. He beat Eubank twice. He had a good career. Boxed Roxigiani in Germany, beat him. And Cole Thompson was an hard man to beat, and Johnny beat him probably because he thought to himself, this is my final chance. There's no coming back from this. And he did, and he won. And he went on for 5 or 6 years being the world champion.
So, to conclude, okay, so you've obviously given your view on that situation. And I said this to Johnny the other day, it is such a shame to see guys that had an incredible period of their lives together. They had success together. They must have been living together, spending so much time in this gym, spending hours probably gossiping, chilling out, doing all sorts. And when you see it now publicly, it's such a shame. You can see it in the comments, people obviously taking sides, etc. Do you think there's ever a situation, maybe, I don't know if you could do it or somebody else could do it? I think John, your brother's
No, he'll never.
Do you think peace could be made between
It's not even, look, it's not about peace, it's like Johnny said. Everybody's grown up, but unfortunately Naz hasn't grown up. And you might think, oh yeah, he has. Well, not really. You know what I mean? Not really. Because when you listen to Naz talking, it's like, and don't forget, this argument is between Naz and my dad. It's not between... It's not, you could say it's not Johnny's business, but it is in a sense because he's talking about somebody. Naz is talking about somebody and slating somebody who Johnny thought a great deal amount about. Loved me, Dad, do you understand? Because he helped somebody who anybody would have given up.
Your dad basically made him.
Well, he did, but what I'm saying to you, that so many people the only person who probably didn't give up on Johnny, and there were times probably when Johnny gave up on Johnny, but the only person who didn't was my dad, and I think he was trying to prove a point. I can remember my mum saying to him one time, Brendan, like, you're wasting your time with him. He's had so many chances. He's been boxing for so many. He's never going to do it. My dad says, you know what my dad said? He went, well, he's not causing any bother, Alma. He's not doing any harm. That's what he said. But he carried on and he got there. Now, that was my dad's probably dogged determination and his thing to prove people wrong. And that's what he did, and he stuck with Johnny. And sometimes with people, that's all it takes. Having belief in them and sticking with them to the death. Now, Johnny obviously knows himself. Only Johnny knows that story. But there are other fighters who went through that as well, not just Johnny. So with Naz, when you look at Naz now, and he's probably 50, I don't know, 51, 52, you've got the name, you've got the money, and you've got the reputation of what he was. Physically, he doesn't look like Naseem HAMED. He's not in a very good physical state. It's sad to see. Do you understand? It's sad to see. So he probably needs some of that Zapi T1 to smarten him up. But he's a multi-millionaire, right? You would think that he's only 50 years old, that he would have retained some kind of shape. What he's retained, he hasn't retained his shape. He's still got that presence. But what he has retained, the only thing he's retained, well, not the only thing, because he's retained two things. He's retained his wealth and his ego. That's the two things you're seeing for his wealth and his ego, and nothing else. It's like when Johnny says, he's not the Naz I knew. He's not the Naz, because he's still got the ego of what he was when he was a world champion, but he's not a world champion anymore. So forget the ego, because we don't need to see it, because we're still going to respect you for what you did. And like I said to you, if you turn around and said, you know what, I was just a young kid, I got the world at my feet, fame and fortune got to my head a little bit, and I let people send me in the wrong direction. People go, you know what, Naz, fair play. It's all in the past. You're not a young man anymore. You're a mature man with your own kids. And listen, I tell you, Naz's biggest success, his two kids and his missus, right? His kids are nice kids, Sammy, Adam, and his younger one.
Sol.
They're all good kids. So
And they are.
if I were looking at Naz, if I look at Naz now, forget what he did in boxing, forget what he did. He's got three nice kids. That's what he's got. And that's what you should measure yourself on, because that's your family. Yeah. So it don't matter what he's done in boxing. You're going to have millions of people all over the world who don't know you or what you're about, right? But you look at that's his success in life. And you think with him being in that position with his kids, he'd look back and think, you know what? Realistically, this is a load of nonsense. Calling Johnny a snake and having this, if he did just turn and said, you know what, that's just the way it were back in them days, but I've moved on. And he hasn't really moved on, has he? Everybody else has. And that's why there can't be like a kind of reconciliation. Even though Naz has been here, I ain't got a problem with Naz. Never have. You understand? People can make the choices, and sometimes you have to respect that. You don't have to agree with it, but you have to kind of respect it. And for whatever reason or justification it gives it, fine. We all ended up in a better place for it, even though it wasn't the ending that we wanted. We all still end up in a good place. The gym thrived. My dad still created champions. The money we got off of Naz enabled him to carry on doing the boxing. So we have to look at the positive from that aspect. You know what I mean? And that's what it is. What's the other point we're saying?
Well, I think that's pretty much covered it in regards to that. But I think one of the things, good points you raised there was about the kids. And I think most people will probably see Naz and see the way he was, that, you know, that confidence, that showman he was as a fighter. People will probably expect his kids to be raised a certain way. But having personal experience with all three of them, very humble kids, down to earth, respectful, and the way they greet you, it's genuine.
Well, what you tend to find with rich kids is they've got no respect for anybody. They're entitled, and they think they can walk, and they're not like that. They're quite down to earth. They came here, they trained nice kids. So yeah, that's credit.
I think even my first few interactions, I think when one of them's asked me to do some social media clips, there's been like a please at the end of it. It's not been
and you know what? That's probably down to is Alicia the mum, because she's she's from Yorkshire. And that's probably what's kept the feet on the ground.
Last thing on the Ben Whitaker thing, so I spoke to, I was trying to get hold of Ben, but I've got to the bottom of it. So you will have seen that clip about Ben Whitaker where Naz said he doesn't deserve my opinion about him. He doesn't deserve me talking about him. And it seemed quite deep. I'm like, what's happened here? So the simple reaction to it is Naz did an interview a few months ago where they asked him about Ben Whitaker, and he gave him some praise. He said he's a great fighter. He could become a world champion, but it won't be easy, but he's very good, etc. And then they showed that clip to Ben Whitaker, and Ben Whitaker said, oh, that's great coming from a legend. And then he went on to say, I never watched him fight. He said, I watched Winky Wright, I watched Pernell Whitaker. That's who I was brought up on, and never watched Naz. So obviously that sounds a bit mad, because when people watch him fight, he obviously did that ring walk. He did a tribute to Naz's ring walk as well. So Naz's viewpoint would be, you're taking the piss here. You did my ring walk, and you box in a style that I kind of boxed in, and now you're saying you never heard of me, you never watched me fight. But I asked his dad. So obviously Ben's been open about his ADHD before, where he like people with ADHD have no emotions on things. They just say what they think.
Well, the word is they don't have a filter.
They don't have, that's it, right. Beautifully put. You have no filter. So the way he came across in that interview, it looked like he didn't care, but that's just ADHD, it's no filter. But his dad said, I can promise you right now, I brought him up on Pernell Whitaker, Winky Wright, Hopkins, all these kind of guys that his dad was a big fan of. He used to make him watch them. So he didn't watch a great deal of Nas. So that's obviously from his dad, and his dad's a great guy, so I trust what he says. But Nas's reaction justified based on obviously knowing what he did in the ring walk, etc.
Well, maybe he's just kind of paying homage to Nas because obviously people, although, you know, look, the old school know, well, not even the old school, but the older people, Winky Wright, Penel Whitaker, but everybody knows Nas, don't they? So if you're a UK fighter, I would imagine the best way to kind of move yourself forward is, you know, reference Nas, and you want to be like, you know, Nas. And I don't think when he means he wants to be like Nas that he wants to be the fighter like Nas. I think he probably wants to be the showman and bring the showmanship back to boxing like Nas did in his own kind of way, because he's trying to do that. And look, I'm not a big fan of Ben Whitaker, to be honest, but he's got the moves, but will only, I think, when he fights somebody who gives him a proper fight, who's quite, you know, rated, and he comes through a really tough test with somebody who's not had any losses, who's on the way up as well. And for me, you know, that might be a fighter like, say, Boatse or Willie Hutchinson. I know Boatse's not on his way up.
Anthony Yard?
Yeah, Anthony Yard's another one. Yeah, of course, them names who we all know. If he boxes Anthony Yard and beats him well, then you can see he's obviously got something. But if he has a life and death with Anthony Yard, you know, then obviously he's not the real deal, because if he was a Nas type character, he'd be walking through the likes of the Anthony Yards.
Let's see what happens if and when that happens. The last point, he was asked about the best British boxer of all time. Paul Smith told him, and Spencer Oliver told him that they felt it was him. And then obviously
Who?
Nas. And then the other two guys that they raised was Lennox Lewis and Joe Calzaghe. I think Nas said Lennox was Canadian, and then Joe beat a lot of the top names towards the end of their careers. So my question to you is, Dom, if you was going to say Lennox, Joe, Nas, Froch, potentially, Tyson Fury could jump into that mix when he retires, who is the best British boxer of all time for you?
Well, look, Lennox Lewis was, I think he boxed in the Canadian team, but I think he was born British. I think there's something there where he was British, or I don't think he was born in Canada.
I'll find out, but go on. Lennox Lewis, British Canadian, dual nationality. Why has he got dual nationality?
Well, if you just put in,
Yeah, born in London.
right. But then he moved. So he is British. But if I'm going to look at all them fighters, this is how I work it out. Everybody's got a different perspective or opinion how fighters were. But how I measure a fighter is this. Lennox Lewis was a very good fighter. I was a timekeeper at one of his fights before he went to the Emmanuel Stewart to train him, and he was all over the place. He was like all arms and legs. There wasn't kind of much structure to what he did, but when he went to Emmanuel Stewart, he made him a very good fighter. Everything nice and straight, and there was purpose in what he did. He got knocked out a few times, well, maybe once or twice. He got beat. Nas, a very good entertainer, thrilling, never got knocked out, beat everybody, and then he got beat by Barrera, who was at the back end of his career, in my opinion. He wasn't the best version of Barrera, but he beat Nas. Calzaghe never lost, never got knocked out, and he was a very, very good boxer. Very good boxer. Not a massive power puncher, but his boxing style, he went around beating people. So for me, and maybe people will disagree, for me, the best boxer out of those three, and the one who, if I had the chance to be, or champion, or put my money on, because I saw Joe Calzaghe, I knew his dad, watched him box. Boxing IQ, ability, determination, it would be Joe Calzaghe. He probably wasn't the most popular, and he probably wasn't as flashy as Nas and as, you know, everybody tuned in, but his consistency, his performances, the people he beat, regardless of when he beat them, what part of the career is it, he beat them, that was it. Roy Jones, Bernard Hopkins. And if they'd have boxed him earlier in his career, he still would have beat him. So for me, it would be Joe Calzaghe.
Who's
right?
second?
Then I would have said Naz, because Naz never got knocked out. So I would say that if
Far behind then.
yeah, he's not far behind, and Lennox because and when you say heavyweights, I would say Lennox was one of the best because I think he took his eye off the ball when he got knocked out. But what I would say about Calzaghe and Naz is they had iron chins. They got and Lennox also got plenty of bottle, but they never got knocked out. And for me as a coach, somebody who can get through and Cole Froch, another one. Didn't get knocked. He got knocked down. He got off the floor. There's something admirable about those fighters. Even Chris Eubank Senior. There's something admirable about those fighters who they can fight, and when they get hit on the chin, they get back up, and you can't knock them out. And to a certain degree, that's why Tyson Fury comes up there for me as well. Yeah, he's been beat, and he's been like seriously knocked unconscious, and he's climbed it like Christ rising. It's like you've got to give them type of people credit, taking them big shots, and because it's the hardest thing to do, to get off the floor and resume what you're doing. So I've got a lot of respect for them people. Cole Froch, Joe Calzaghe, Naseem HAMED, Eubanks Senior, having that solid chin and being able to ride them shots and take them. It's like it says something about somebody.
Give me a short answer on this. Obviously, that Naz...
Short answer?
Short answer on this, yeah. That Naz documentary, you can see that last fight in Pereira, he obviously cut the weight really short. But if Naz 3 years previous, the way he was training, dedicated, what would have...
There's no short answer to that. So I can give you no answer or the proper answer.
A proper fit Naz, what does he do to Pereira?
I think Ryan Rhodes, when he was interviewed, they asked, I don't know if you asked him a question, probably were you, and said, would Naz have been any different if he hadn't left the gym? And Ryan went, well, he did get dropped when he was in the Ingle gym. He did. He got dropped. By
Augie Sanchez?
He'd left by that time. Earlier on,
that Lopez guy?
No. Earlier on, it'll come to me. But he did get dropped, and he got back off the floor. But I always remember listening to my dad. And when he boxed Robinson, he said for him, the peak of Naz's training was for the Robinson fight because he knew he got it all to do. He goes, after that, it was hard work getting Naz in the gym to train because he got the power. He could get out of trouble with the power he got. And if you watched him train, he probably never, he won't agree, but we are trainers. My dad said it was a constant battle then, keeping him on it because the fame and the fortune and people blowing smoke up his arse. It was getting hard to get him in the gym to train. And I trained him for the Wayne McCulloch fight. It was quite easy to train. For me, it was easy to train him because I was kind of a bit detached from all the drama, what was going on. But if you'd have watched him train, yeah, he could train and he could do the moves and he could do it in his sleep. So he didn't particularly have to work hard to be able to perform. But it was going to be somebody who worked as hard as him, and that was Barrera. And realising that if you make Naz work for 3 minutes of every round, that power's going to diminish. But if you look at Naz had the ability to hit somebody, make him stand up for a couple of seconds, hit him again, and he could recharge. But Barrera just kind of put his head down and just pressured Naz. And he rode a lot of the shots. And obviously that in a combination of Naz being weight drained, and Naz sat here in that box what you're sat on and said, my brother said to him, why did you box Barrera? He goes, when you weren't ready. He went, John, I just remember your dad saying, for the money I was getting, he goes, you couldn't rob 2 banks in London and get away with that money without doing time. He goes, the worst way is I was going to get beat or I was going to win, but I was getting 4 or 5 million quid. He goes, where could you get that kind of money? He goes, I couldn't turn it down with whatever way. So that's the thing. And he got the utter belief to go in and do it, even probably only being 50% prepared. So that's that. And you take your chances and you have to admire him for that. But ultimately, it was a loss on his record for a guy I think he could have beat.
Definitely. Thank you for that, Dom. It's been a good chat on a Sunday night, and I can see now we can do these podcasts even later, seeing as you're fully stacked up with the Zapi T1. They do a lot of products, but that is the gold standard of all the stuff they do. If you look at some of the ingredients on there, obviously you've read them, it's got pretty much everything in it that helps you with energy, etc. And like I said at the start, the link is pinned to the comments on the YouTube video. Head over and purchase some Zapi T1. 3 times a day, take it for a month and watch the difference it makes.
3 capsules a day. Well, I've been taking 3. Might have to double it up, see what happens. Might make my hair grow back.
You never know. Dom, thank you very much.